Hi there, welcome along to this special edition of the Betting Oracle. We're going to be concentrating on Aintree this weekend and, of course, principally the Grand National, the big race on Saturday afternoon. Harry Finlay with me here in the studio as normal. And we have a very special guest this week. It's Davy Russell, the dual Grand National winning jockey. We'll be talking to Davy in just a moment. But, Harry, do you have really good memories in the past about the Grand National? Anything spring to mind right now?
As a youngsters, as a very much a youngster, I was very much football in our family. None of my family were racing, and I remember being behind the goal at Wycombe Wanderers. I used to watch Wycombe Wanderers home and away, always behind the goal as a 12, 13 year
What had
old.
you done wrong?
No, like they were the great Isthmian League team with that sloping pitch at Lokes Park. But I just couldn't believe it when so many people, I've been 12 or 13, suddenly about halfway through the first half, everyone started listening to a horse race on the radio. And I just couldn't get my head round it. And of course, it was the National.
Yeah.
And I remember the names Liscargo and Rag Trade. So that was the first time I even found out about the National. And then a couple of years later, my first ever bet was on Boondocker and red and white quartered colours, and he was miles clear at 66-1 before refusing or unseating at Beaches, and I'd spent the money by the time he got to Beaches. So it took me a couple of days to get over that.
Oh, well, I backed Hello Dandy in 84 and West Tip in 86 and then just thought it was going to be easy for every year after that, but it certainly wasn't. But Davy Russell, who's with us here in the studio, has ridden two Grand National winners. Of course, they were both on Tiger Roll. And just taking you back to the first one, Davy, it was a 10-1 chance that day, but pretty strongly fancied as it was.
Yeah, I suppose from a jockey's point of view, it didn't really. I actually didn't know what price he was. I had no
Yeah.
idea. And I didn't know I was riding him until declaration time because Gordon leave things late, and he had a couple of really nice horses in the race, so it hadn't really bothered me too much. And Keith had done a lot of the winning on him, but his
Yeah.
weight, we had to keep an eye on the weight, and I think he'd 10-13 or 10-11 or something like that.
Keith couldn't do it
No,
anyway. Yeah.
no, he couldn't do the weight, so I was thrown up on him, and I was just delighted to have a ride in the race. I didn't think he'd get around, but it was quite the opposite. He took to it really well. Um, it was an unbelievable feeling. Like it's a special race, and all my life I was always kind of, we go down the inside, we'll nip here, nip there, and I can clearly remember in my head, I didn't care going out on Tiger Roll. I just said wherever I sit, and just I didn't. It didn't bother me. I can clearly remember actually going to the start when we were doing the parade that the commentator, I could hear him saying that he's the smallest horse and the oldest jockey, and I started laughing with the two girls that were leading him up. They were telling me it's about time now you went and won one, and I said I know, it's getting moving on. I think it was my Liam was asking me the other day what age I was. I think it was 38. I think
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
If I was a young lad thinking that a 38-year-old could ride the winner of a Grand National, like it's crazy, really. I'd 14 or 15 goes at it before that.
Yeah.
But just in the last couple of years, I had some really good experiences around there. I'd finished third on St. R, and I thought I was going to win it on a horse of Pat Fahey's. Was it Castle Grace Paddy or one of them horses? He was in silver colours. He was Steve Parkin's colours,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
God, I was pulling a roller going to the not the Melling Road. What's the name of the on the other side? They have a different name on it. The other side, and
Was that just after the third last? Or?
yeah.
Yeah.
Now literally going to the crossing, um, I was cantering, and the minute I came off the crossing, I was stone cold. I was gone. I was finished. But then it was the opposite with Tiger Roll. He was the first year he only had cheek pieces on, and he was a dream. He made a couple of slight errors. I remember at one of the fences that he was get shocking low. Like, I mean, he wouldn't
Yeah.
millimeters, and he got so low that the greenery had knocked my foot out of the iron. But he just travelled everywhere. He was really good. And then when I crossed the I can't think of the name of the crossing. They have some name on it. And when we crossed after the third last, he just started to fall asleep a little bit on me because I was going so well and I didn't want to move. because it's such a long straight. And I remember it just popped into my head about the previous couple of years that I woke him up, and the minute I woke him up, he just, like a motor car, he locked back on. And, it's the old saying, it got there a little bit early, but I look back on previous Grand Nationals, and I think 90% of the horses that win the Grand National kind of take it up. Like, they're definitely going best at the second last, or they're upsides at the second last. There's this myth about, okay, you know, horses can take it up a bit early, but at the same time, you're kind of doing that for a reason, because you're going so easy.
Yeah.
It's a different thing if you force a horse into the lead, then maybe you might be wrong. But if he's carrying you into the lead, I think you're nearly always better to let them enjoy the way they're travelling.
And by the time you won the national on Tiger Roll, you had a Gold Cup in the bag, didn't you? You had Lord Windermere. So you'd won a Gold Cup. Was it still a huge ambition to win the national?
It was more an ambition to get a ride in it.
Yeah.
Every year it was important that you get a ride, because if you get a ride in it, you have a chance. And to win it was always a distance. It was so far away from winning it. Do you know what I mean? You get close, but it was so far away from actually winning the race. But the biggest ambition was to get a ride in it. That was the number one. And then it's so hard to tick all the boxes. You need to be the right weight. You need a horse that stays. You need a horse that jumps. And a lot of the time, the really good jumpers, it doesn't suit them, because they emphasize too much on their jumping. Whereas the likes of Tiger Roll, he'd only skim across the top of him. He'd no fear of defences.
And by that time, Davey, when you were skimming across the top of them, you were just knocking the spruce off, because the fences were smaller, weren't they?
Yeah, they were smaller, but I still, there's the old thing about whether he'd have won an old national.
Yeah.
But he's so clever. He wouldn't have made too many mistakes. I can guarantee you that. He would. And then there's the other side of it. Would the horses from years ago have won these national?
Exactly.
It's a hell of a good race. Like, I looked at it there afterwards, and I think there was 38 horses went out on the second circuit.
Yeah.
Like, when do you ever see that in a Grand National? There was an awful lot of chances, and we were so well packed up. But for me, it was always going. It's amazing. Like, it's so hard to win a national, but when you get the horse, it's so easy to win a national. Like, it was easy.
Falls into place.
Yeah.
And then you come back 12 months later, and by this time he's 4-1 favourite, I think. So extra pressure on you.
Not so much. Again, I didn't. Them things didn't really bother me. It actually only clicked with me a couple of minutes before the race. There was these guys, and they were dressed up in tiger suits. There was about 15 of them there, and they were all chanting. And then it just kind of dawned on me a little bit that, it's getting big now, and I usedn't leave the race get too big in my mind, if you know what I mean. Like, we still had to look. Of course, it's not an ordinary race. There's no Grand National is just an ordinary race. But from a jockey's point of view, that's the way I had to treat it.
Yeah.
Just another day of going out. I'm sure whether golfers do it or cricket players or hurlers or footballers, it's just another. It's not another game of soccer. It's another. That's what the way I had. So I always felt at the time maybe that I wasn't making enough of it, but then if I made too much of it, you'd be spoiling your chance.
Well, you talk about making something of it. I remember that particular one when Tiger Roll won the second time. I was at Leopardstown on the Saturday because it was Guineas Trials Day.
Oh yeah.
And I watched Tiger Roll winning on the TV at Leopardstown. And then the Sunday I went to Fairy House. So it was jumping at Fairy House. And I get out of Fairy House into my car, and RTE Radio said, "Oh, Tiger Roll's coming home to the village." The Summerhill?
Summerhill, yeah.
Summerhill. And I put it in my sat nav, and I thought, let's go over there and have a look. And I drove over. You could not park your car anywhere. Everybody was parked up on the grass verges. I got into the town or the village. I saw you getting out of your car. Then the next thing is there was people lining the streets outside the pub. And the next thing is this guy came out of the crowd with a horse's head on and started cantering up and down the street. Everybody was going mental. And Tiger Roll hadn't even arrived at this point. Then Gordon's lorry arrives. Tiger Roll gets out. Michael O'Leary, your good friend Michael, gets out with a Grand National trophy and is walking it up the main street in the village. Tiger Roll behind. I think you were in that parade as well. Unbelievable scenes. And that just seems to happen in Ireland when a horse wins a race like that.
Yeah, I suppose we were so long not being able to win it that we cherish when we can win it. But in Ireland, I don't know the ways you put it, but it means an awful lot
does,
to
yeah.
an awful lot of people. And, you know,
Would you say more so than winning the Gold Cup, say, at Cheltenham?
oh, absolutely. Yeah.
The Grand
That's
National would come
interesting,
well ahead. And what about in the weighing room, Davey? I'd imagine of say national hunt owners that most would, a good higher percentage, way over 50, I'd say, would prefer to win the Gold Cup. But in the jockey's room, would you say the national would?
Yeah, but you have a bigger spread of guys that have the ability they all have the ability to win it.
Yes.
Yeah.
But they also have that chance of getting a ride in it, as I said. Whereas not every jockey in the Wareham will get the chance to ride in a Gold Cup.
Quite right.
There's no doubt they have the ability. You know, as you well know, you've seen there's some very, very good jockeys there. They just don't get the opportunity. And as I said, my main objective every year was just to get a ride.
Yeah.
You know, that's the most important thing.
As I say, Sean Bowen still hasn't ridden the winner at Cheltenham at all.
Yeah, and his brother has ridden, ridden 3 or 4.
You know, in a day.
yeah, and he's an exceptional. Like he's, I think he's bordering on. I think he's as close. He's definitely as close to the likes of AP and Richard Johnson that we've seen over the last couple of years. Like Harry Cobden is an exceptional rider, but he's not. He doesn't come across as the real grinder that Sean Bowen is. Sean Bowen he's an exceptional talent. And I'd say AP didn't, or Richard didn't. They didn't always have great success in Cheltenham. It'll come. There's no doubt about it. It'll come. But when it comes, it'll come like the train, like the buses. He's going to ride a lot.
Yeah, I think that's a good point because AP won 20 championships, I think, and was only top jockey at Cheltenham twice.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, good point. Just go back to Tiger Roll before we move on. Were you of the opinion back then that he should have gone for a third?
Oh well, he missed the third through COVID.
COVID, that's right. Yeah.
And then we'll say the fourth year. Then after again, it wasn't my opinion. There was no other horse I wanted to ride in the race. I wanted to ride him, but if he wasn't going to run, what's the point? I'm sure there was reasons. They had good enough reasons. What they spoke about maybe may not have been the exact reason. I think there could have been a combination of things maybe put together that why he didn't run.
Yeah. Well, we've got a fascinating race this weekend for the Grand National. 34 runners. The field is now reduced to 34. We now get some very, very high-class horses in the race. And at the head of the market, we have a previous winner of the race, I Am Maximus. And I suppose he's one of several, Davy, that are owned by JP McManus, who seems to have a real stranglehold on the race this year. Would you agree with that, with the number of runners that he has so high up in the betting?
Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. He's put together a team of horses over the past couple of years that I've seen JP's horses over the past 20, 25, 30 years, but I have never seen him with a team of horses
this good
all together all told. So there obviously is going to be a lot of them end up in the likes of a national, and it makes sense that he has a lot of contenders, and he does have, like the likes of Johnny Who and I Am Maxius, Iroko. They're all, quality horses that really do have live chances of definitely being involved, if not winning the race.
And what struck me was his 7 contenders across 6 different yards, which is interesting.
And all the people in between. You must remember you have 7 different jockeys. Obviously 6 different trainers. He supports everyone. There's no one. There's no. I don't think if anybody has a horse that they feel is good enough for JP, there's no yard that he wouldn't have a horse in.
And most of the time when he does go and buy a horse and it becomes JP McManus owned, it stays where it was before.
Yeah, like Oscar's brother, for instance.
Oscar's brother with the Kings.
Yeah, and young Connor was twice apprentice champion.
Apprentice, yeah.
And what a beautiful family. Like even Daniel, good rider again. as we said, like all the jockeys in the Wareham have the ability to win a Grand National just to get the chance, and it's great that the likes of JP is there to leave them horses with the two brothers, Daniel to ride and Connor to train, and there's nothing to say that that relationship won't blossom, and that's why every trainer in Ireland or England have a chance of getting a nice horse. If
I think he is one of the owners that different to what I said, would prefer the National than the Gold Cup. JP, I think the National has always been his favourite race.
Absolutely, I think the puzzle of it would give him. But he has won both, so it's.
I think he's a national man.
Yeah, I think that it's a handicap, and he does. Just likes he seems to like the puzzle of them of figuring out them handicaps,
and he's obviously I would say he's probably the biggest owner in the British Isles if we look at it that way. But you've also got Michael O'Leary who runs his horses under Gigginstown Stud. You've got Rob Coore coming through now, but it's still going to be McManus for a few years to come, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely, but I don't see the surprise in that.
No.
He makes the most investment. As you said, he spreads. So, again, Rich Ritchie, fantastic owner, but his horses are concentrated in 1 yard.
Willie Mullins,
and if something untoward goes wrong with that yard, that's his whole team shut down. Whereas JP has a wide spread of yards, so that if 1 yard isn't going so well, they have. The substitutes or whatever way you want to. You have different yards there that they can pick horses out of to go for different races, and it makes sense to me when he's that much in love with the sport. That it's spread out like that. That the old saying, "Don't put all your eggs into one basket."
They're well spread out. Let's just have a look at the betting for Saturday's race, and at the moment, the I Am Maximus is the favourite. I think you can get 9-1 now, Harry. I think you saw 9-1 this morning. You've got Grange Clare West in there on 10-1. You've got Panic Attack for Dan and Harry Skelton, another two brothers who are looking to win the race, as well as Connor and Danny King with Oscar's brother. You've got Jaguar, another JP horse in there around about 12-1. You've got Johnny Who, yet another JP horse, as we've been alluding to, in there at 12-1. And that Oscar's brother, which I think might just be depending on a little bit more rain to be absolute optimum conditions, but still got a great chance, 16 and 20-1. So at the moment, Davey, and we've seen in various nationals over the years that on the morning of the race there tends to be a plunge horse, but at the moment it looks quite open, doesn't it?
It is, and it is the same every year. And again, you must remember, it's only Thursday. We still have tomorrow, and conditions can change. And I just had a quick check of the weather forecast. I came here, and there is. It doesn't look good. The forecast is not for clear skies anyway. So, and again, there's nothing to say it's going to hit Aintree. So that's another thing. You can't be too hard on the ground staff there. Do they water? Don't they water? You're going to have to give them some bit of leeway with the way the forecast is, and I
thought the clerk of the course at Cheltenham had it a bit rough.
I thought that was
not for
I
me.
wouldn't like to be in his position, because
never. And
look, we know, and everybody knows they're doing their level best to get it right for the majority. The majority must rule.
There was rain forecast as well. I mean, people just 36 hours early were betting soft ground horses on the Friday because of the rain.
That's right.
And then when it never come, the clerk of the course gets the stick.
And we heard just before we come in to make the programme that last year's winner Nick Rocket is a non-runner. That would have been it would have been a big ride in the race for Tom Bellamy, who'd been booked by Willie Mullins to ride that. But that's a non-runner, which kind of explains why Patrick has switched to Grange Clare West. But I suppose Grange Clare West, in terms of the form, he's been whispered, Davy, for this race for quite some time.
He is, and he's a very good racehorse. He won the race in Fairyhouse. The what's the name of it? It'll come to me in a minute.
Yeah.
But it's a good trial run for that, and he had Nick Rocket back in third. So he shows a huge level of ability at that horse. He actually runs a good race pretty much every time he runs over different distances. So, and he's taken to the fences last year. What age is he?
He's a 10-year-old now.
Yeah,
10-year-old.
Yeah, I suppose he's still there for that. Yeah, he's not gone over the hill yet, I know.
And has there one horse jumped out at you, or do you feel it's as open as we think?
Yeah, the one horse that ticks an awful lot of boxes is Final Orders.
Yeah.
He would want the rain to stay away. Not that I know he can handle the ground. That's not a problem. But to handle the ground and win a Grand National is a different thing. But he's for all the world as he's another Tiger Roll. He's got a lovely weight to start with.
10 stone 5.
Yeah, he's got a good pilot on his back. And his form coming to the race is good. It's excellent actually. But it was all over cross country courses. But then you go back to his last time over a park fence was in Downpatrick when he was second in the Ulster National. And you go back to Pinot de Rey, who had won the Ulster National. So there's loads of reasons there why you'd be looking at the likes of Final Orders. First of all, his weight, and I think he could be a little bit better than his mark in a national, just the way he jumps and his ability, you know.
That's Glenn's first pick. I'm well pleased with that. He was going to ask me how he thought he compared with Tiger Roll because of the crossover with the cross country race, and I think there's a good record despite the fences are still a different style, and he was putting up Final Order, same as you on the good ground. But I just 37 to 1 he was just 5 minutes ago. So
yeah,
I was well surprised.
Is that because they're expecting rain? And Davy says he would prefer not to have rain. Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I still think that.
I don't think it'll be softer.
That's what. Yeah, I think
it's not going to be heavy.
No shots.
I think it'll be okay. I think it'll be okay. But I'm just saying that the less race, the better. The less rain, the better chance he would. I'd feel because he really would bounce off it. Now, he's very similar to Tiger. Even when Tiger won it, there was rain all the way up, and remember the wind, it dried out. It just dried out enough, and that's all he needs, just for it to stay enough.
And we've all seen him winning and running very well over those cross-country fences at Cheltenham, but he's done it at Punchestown over the banks as well, hasn't he?
He has, and then again, he's gone back. You go back to his last park run was still a very good effort. And for them reasons, like if he was just a bank expert, you'd say maybe not. You know, you just wouldn't be as confident, but when you go back to his last park over the park fences, that was good enough.
And how many good young jockeys are there in Ireland? And Cornerstone Walsh has been making a right name for himself.
He's a talent. He's a talent. He's a good chap. He's got a great mind on him.
And got the job done at Cheltenham when Keith couldn't do the weight.
Yeah, and he's a very pleasant guy as well. He's a really nice guy, and he just behaves himself really well. But he's just talented.
He stays all day, Final Orders.
Yeah, that's no problem. I don't think stamina is an issue. He's raced up.
So those odds might have a bit of place as well.
Yeah,
on the old machine.
He's raced
on good ground
over different trips as well. Yeah,
and the horse I fancy, Davy, is the one I mentioned earlier, Oscar's brother for the Kings. He was staying on really well in the Brown Advisory. Maybe got a little bit outpaced early, but that was 3 miles. Would it worry you get outpaced over 3 miles, or just because that was really good ground?
No, in a previous Grand National that might be a slight worry, but as we've seen again, you can only take the evidence that's there, and in the past, you couldn't really come from behind in a Grand National. It was a huge task to do that. But that has changed in the last couple of years, that horses can actually be dropped in and take the chance of getting through the likes of Lucinda Russell's horse that came from...
One for Arthur, was it?
One for Arthur and
Corach Rambler.
But both of them were actually dropped in
by Derek Fox.
Were purposely dropped in and weaved their way through. So, and again, any rain that comes would be an advantage to him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what do you think of Sean Bones' mount, Haiti Calours? He won the Irish Grand National last year, won it really well. His form's been a little bit in and out, but they seem to think it'll be suited by Aintree. What do you think, Davey, from what you've seen so far?
Yeah, just you see, I would prefer if he had to miss the Gold Cup, and even run in some other race, whatever race it'd be. I just feel that the Gold Cup, and hence the reason why Django by, I'd be a little bit. I'm not saying he can't win, but I'm just saying that a Gold Cup leaves a huge mark.
Yeah.
You know, and to recover from a Gold Cup, whereas when you're recovering from a cross-country race, maybe even that's a handicap, it's not as severe, you know what I mean? It's just, you know, you put all your cards on the table in a Gold Cup. Whereas, you know, I don't mind, like even the likes of Oscar's brother and them, they... You know, he had a nice run through the race. He didn't seem to bottom him out. They have chances of boosts coming back to form. Whereas in the Gold Cup, it's not easy.
And we're going to assume, for the purposes of this discussion, that Spillane Tower has run on Thursday afternoon. So, despite the fact that he's been declared for Jimmy Mangan, we're assuming he's not in the national field on Saturday. But one who should be is Banbridge, which won the King George at Kempton, finished second or third in it this year in a blanket finish. Is he a 4.25 mile horse, Davy?
Not I did. There used to be an old saying that you needed a
2.5
two and a half
miler,
miler,
yeah.
but I don't think
No,
That's
that
what I
anymore.
said. That's what I said about big fella. Thanks.
Yeah.
Until he got to the third last.
That's right. The third last tells everything.
The third
A
last.
horse,
Yes, the third last. He's
the tank
that
just
was just gone.
yeah, the tank empties so fast.
Yeah.
I
Would it be feasible you could canter Banbridge round and then come late with a bit of
You
turn of foot?
can't canter around any race, not any championship race anymore.
yeah.
They're just so competitive.
Yeah,
Now he's
exactly.
definitely ground dependent.
Yeah.
He wants really nice ground.
Yeah,
Um,
not that far.
so if any rain would definitely be a negative
Yeah.
for him, and especially to get the trip. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you know, we've seen so many horses go well along that line of fences, and just before they come, the Anchor Bridge crossing, Bridge
Hey, we
crossing.
got
I
there.
knew I'd
You
get
got
there.
it in the end.
Before they get to the Anchor Bridge crossing, they can be going so well, and all of a sudden it just
yeah.
the petrol light starts flashing. Yeah,
And in terms of Banbridge, I mean, he's a class act. And it was interesting you used the phrase, you said championship race there. Clearly, this is not a championship race, but it's now verging on that class
it
with the
is.
horses that you get in the top
Well,
six.
Well, there's championship horses in it.
Yeah.
You know, like of Banbridge.
Yeah.
Maxius has been running in, you know, Irish Gold Cups. You know, Grange Clare West, the same running in graded race. Horticolor is an Irish national winner. Oscar's brother is a very good novice chaser. You know, all them horses are running in Panic Attack.
And there's less specialists now as well, aren't there? In
Yeah.
the olden days, you'd have your specialists that
Yeah.
you know that had run well there in the top and more. You know, even though Grittar, the Hunter Chase, had been over the. You know, whereas now with the fence has changed so much, it's not.
Plus, you could go and run well in the top of them and then not even get
Yeah.
in the top 50 in the Grand
That's
National.
right.
Exactly.
That's right.
The way things are going.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And in terms of Gordon Elliott this year, he's got Jerry Colomba, which he still obviously holds a candle for. He still thinks that can go and win a big
Oh
race.
yeah, he's a championship horse as well, and he showed his well-being in
And
down-
Jack Kennedy rides.
Yeah, I thought that was
Yeah.
that was definitely
He could have ridden
a
3 card
positive.
brag, couldn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a good positive for the horse. My only slight worry is, maybe as I said, he's an exceptional jumper. Now, I mean, Harry, you'd ride this fellow over a fence. He's just,
no,
hey.
no, I wish I
he
could.
was one of my last winners as a jockey. He won a grade 1 in Aintree,
Yeah.
but like you could actually just fold over on him and close your eyes on a park fence. And I'm always worried with them horses when they go over their national fences that they put too much emphasis in their jumping.
Yeah.
So that's the only slight worry. It's a strange thing to say, but maybe he might be too good a jumper
Yeah.
for them fences. That's the only worry I have.
And 3 card brag, you'd have to excuse his last run, but up until then he'd been running really well. Ran reasonably well last year, but maybe got a bit ahead of himself and he's pulling too hard. And maybe they'll hold him up a bit more this time.
Yeah, well, I suppose they can't really hold him up anymore. Only he just has to learn how to settle.
Yeah.
Just has to settle, and that's it. Like we saw it in the Irish National. Done a miler. Just he rolled the dice. He
Soldier in
jumped out.
Milan, yeah.
He was a bit keen, but you know he had
Sat second or third the whole way.
yeah.
Yeah.
And although he was a bit keen, he still got into a lovely rhythm. And it's all about rhythm. You can run a bit keen and be in the rhythm, but if you're running keen and you're out of your rhythm, then you've your chance lessens the further you go. You know.
What does it say about a horse that's 9 years old that's still taking a pull though? You'd worry about that?
Not so
No.
much. I as a rider would love that the enthusiasm is still there. And it's just that you get lucky enough to get down to the start early enough and get him relaxed and let his energy keep his energy for the race rather than I'd be more worried about a horse that the preliminaries are very important in the Grand National because it's a long time from when they leave the parade ring until they actually drop the flag, and they have a long way to go. They have a long walk, and you have to behave yourself, and you have to conserve your energy. Hence the reason why the likes of Tiger Roll, he used to big himself up a little bit when he see the crowd, so it was a positive for him, and that's why I'd be saying them horses maybe that would even be a bit lackluster on a normal day, that they would perk up a little bit for a Grand National rather than a horse that would be a bit perky and could go over the top on a big day. You know?
And we had so many shambolic starts at Cheltenham. And this race, the Grand National, is seen all around the world. We want to get the start right for this. Do you think they're getting there? Do you think they're almost there getting the start right? Or is it still a problem, Davy?
It's you see, the problem with the starts is 95% of the year there's no issue with the start.
Yeah.
But in Cheltenham, every starting position is in a poor place.
Yeah.
So they're on a bend for pretty much every start. So you can't blame the jockeys and you can't blame the starter. And it's just circumstances. And it's the same in the Grand National. You have the most amount of runners in any race. And to get every one of them spot on, it's not going to be easy. So I wouldn't be too hard on starters or jockeys in them races. Them things happen. But, you know, the jockeys are aware of it. They're going to get penalised if they break the rules. Some guys just can't help it. You're dealing with a huge animal, and both have to be thinking the same thing. And plus, you have to have 34 of them behaving themselves and thinking the same way. I'd be very confident that they'll get it off and in one whip. Since they moved the start a little bit forward, it gives them that extra time to be straight, and everybody inside and outside are, you know, where they want to be. And look, I wouldn't give out too much about it. It was an eke of mine when I was riding. I hated false start. It used to drive me bananas why there would be a false start, but you must take under consideration in Cheltenham, like that 2.5 mile start on the inside where they have to come around that bend. A guy on the outside of 20 runners is obviously going to have to go quicker than the guy on the inside.
Yeah.
And then he's trying to keep up with him, and all of a sudden you just have that whoosh of speed. I would be very forgiving of them until they change the situations and the positioning of the starts. If they have to come forward 100 yards to help them or go back 100 yards to help them, I think they should use their initiative there and do that.
Another jockey room question. Of the, say, top 40 jockeys or the, say, 40, 35 run, how many do you think would preferred Aintree when it was how it used to be? Say, how the fences were before the 15 years ago. Do you older guys would not remember what it was like, but do you think
Riley.
Do you think the majority of jockeys preferred it when it was a lot tougher like that, or do you think they're quite happy that it's scaled down a bit?
I do feel that it's as tough a challenge now as it was back when the fences were bigger, because things changed. They're going that little bit quicker. Faster. And there's different circumstances for different generations.
Yes.
And I'm not one that would say they have it any easier now. Yeah. The one thing that I would feel that makes it hugely easier is the 6 less runners.
Yes.
I think the 40, that was a task. Yeah. Now that was...
So 34 is a good thing?
Not in my mind. I didn't think they needed to change the numbers. I think they could have left the numbers at 40. They had done an awful lot of changes elsewhere, and I thought they had done a lot of changes, and that was enough. I thought the challenge of the Grand National was the 40. So I myself, 38 would have been fine. I didn't think there was a need to scalp that much off it, because it does make a huge difference the lesser the numbers. And I didn't think they needed to take that big a scalp off it, because it is the beauty of the race. It's only once you're gonna encounter that, you know. And so that was one thing. Maybe I didn't think they needed to take that huge a scalp. Everything else, and as I said, different generations have different challenges. So, like when we were jumping beaches, I remember when we were jumping beaches and you have to lock out your leg to make sure you didn't get unbalanced. Whereas now you can just flow away down over beaches. There's not the huge drop at the back of it, but at the same time, you're back up and you're running bang straight away. There's no breather. There's no time to have. There's no time. Jesus, did you see your one up in the crowd there when she was waving at us or anything like that? You know, that time is gone now. It's just boom, 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 boom.
Well, you look back at some of those old black and white pictures and you see them coming over beachers and they're on the buckle end. Aye. The arms are way back here. You know, the legs, as you say, the legs are out straight.
Yeah. Talking about that, Davey, I've got to tell this, my favourite ever Cheltenham's funniest. People say, what's your best favourite moment from Cheltenham over the years? Well, my funniest Cheltenham moment was Davy Russell doing just that. We was with George Baker and Sean Clancy, who at the time was the top American national hunt jockey.
Yeah.
And we decided to go out for one of the handicaps to the third last, which was a sort of effectively a downhill fence. In those days, you could go out on the inside. We'd been up all day at Cheltenham, but for this particular race, we'd gone out to the third last, and it was downhill. And he put the leg out, he went flying. And literally, all of us that were stood there on just like a little bit of tape by the fence, we let out a gasp because his shoulder went crashing into the ground, and the horse went flying, legs everywhere. Literally, 3 somersaults he did and stood right back up. And as he stood up, he was bang in front of me. And he just completely said, "Hello, Harry." Just deadpan. And I shook his hand and said, And George Baker, as I can remember, he said, thanks for getting me out of trouble at Nace on Tuesday night, Davey. And Sean Clancy and George Baker were stood either side of me. I promise you.
I remember
honestly, they were the 3 of us were just crying, and so were you. Yeah. And if anyone had a video, if anyone had all those people now with the phones, I promise you, it's my funniest Cheltenham moment by a million miles.
If that was on Twitter /X, Davey, it would have 10 million views by now, I can imagine.
You can remember it.
I remember.
It's one of those stories that you cannot exaggerate. He couldn't have somersaulted anymore. The fall couldn't have looked any worse, and he was literally stood right in front of me. Do
you remember, Davey?
I do. I do remember, because when you get a fall, you actually don't know where. When you stand up, you don't know where you are for a second because of what direction you're travelling. And then I looked up and I see Harry.
Right in front
Harry, so what could you do? And he just laughed.
It was so funny.
It was
a classic.
I want to talk about Mark Walsh with Davey, and the way of doing that is mentioning the fact that of the JP horses on Saturday, he's chosen to ride Jaguar, and he nailed his colours to the mast, Davey, quite early on. 2 or 3 weeks ago, he said, "I'm riding Jaguar." No doubt about it. And of course, comes from the same stable as Iroko, and that's Ollie Greenall and Josh Guerriero. So he's on Jaguar. I don't suppose he would have jocked off Danny King on Oscar's brother anyway, but he's had his pick of the JP horses. Is he on the right one?
Yeah, it's hard to know. Like, I suppose Paul has an association with Ian Maxius, and obviously Daniel has has an association with Oscar brother, and I suppose he looks to be one that has a life, definitely. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's very difficult to pick when you have a choice like that, to pick the right one. Any given day, different circumstances can change, and that horse definitely is there. But my only worry with him is the big raw horse, whether he'll have the agility to get around. You know, you've no problem getting around.
Yeah.
But to jump with the fluency and have the agility then at the end, and the stamina at the end to sprint up past the water jump and win it. So I don't know whether he's on the right one or not, but I'm sure he's on the right one of the ones that were left.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, Mark knows his way around Aintree, obviously.
Oh, he's an exceptional.
Of course, yeah, and we all know he's an exceptional jockey. Was there a great surprise in Ireland when the announcement was made that Harry Cobden was going to come over and become number one, and that Mark's time was coming to an end?
Well, not so much that it was Harry Cobden, but obviously I have a huge soft spot for Harry because you must remember, I think he's only 22 or 3. Is he even that?
Maybe a wee bit older, but he's a young man.
He's a young man. He's after covering an awful lot of ground in a short space of time, so he's very talented.
He's a great lad as well, and everyone's
I actually love listening to his interviews. He done an interview in Mallow the other day after riding his first, and he just has such a pleasant way about him.
Yeah.
And again, he couldn't get over the reception that he got in Fairyhouse when he rode his first winner. But you must remember, and it's a thing with horse racing, how close it brings England and Ireland. Like we have,
absolutely.
There's definitely distance between us in every other sport,
of course,
bar horse racing, and it's the same. The Irish they will cherish Harry Cobden.
Well, that's what I was getting at. Will they take Harry Cobden to the horse?
They look at that as a horseman, and
absolutely
again, they do look at it from their pocket if they can back a horse.
Back a winner.
And don't you ever forget that. That they'll be money talks, and when they're making money off Harry, they will be his.
But you mentioned Mallow the other day, or Cork, as everybody knows it. He had 6 rides that day. I think he was just glad to get one in the bag, wasn't he?
Oh, he definitely was. But however many times, I could tell you amount of times that I went to the races with 6 exceptional rides and winning on the one that I probably didn't think would
Didn't
win.
fancy, yeah.
Like, for some reason, they were probably priced up an awful lot shorter than for the reason he was there riding them. They were all Willie Mullins horses, but it wasn't a surprise to me that only one of them won. Like, you know what I mean? There were, a lot of them were going to get beat, but again, Harry is bright and he's going to figure out them tracks. If it didn't take him long to figure out Fairy House, I can tell you that.
Yeah. And for all that, we all think Harry's a great jockey and he'll do a great job. Was it harsh on Mark Walsh?
Harsh. You see, I'm not sure how harsh it was or what way that situation is going to evolve, because obviously we spoke, JP has a lot of horses and he's got a lot of horses in England and Ireland.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much is Mark going to play his part in Ireland, or in Harry concentrate on the majority in England. And again, Mark is 40 years of age.
Yeah, exactly.
And unfortunately, it's just...
I didn't realise, he don't look 40,
no,
does
he
to
doesn't.
be fair.
And he's been minded so well, and he's had such a brilliant career. Harry is not Mark Welch yet. I must stress that Mark's an exceptional rider, and he's done so well for the... But he will be. He will ride an awful lot of very good winners. But again, how long is Mark going to keep going? You know, is the thing. And again, like every sport, unfortunately, like people are nipping at your heels the whole time.
Could you envisage him winning the Grand National in Jaguar and announcing that's it?
Wouldn't be Mark. I don't think.
No,
I
keep
think
going.
Mark is.
Wouldn't be me either. You know my views on retirement, sportsmen. Don't retire until you really have to.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Yeah.
So if we're going to put Davey on the spot here, and I'm going to show 5 that I've picked, so you're allowed more than one. How do you think the outcome's going to be on Saturday about 4:10?
I like the 2 cross country horses, Gordon's and Gavin Cromwell's.
Right.
DeChambeau. What's his name? I can't think of his name. He's one that the preliminaries might affect.
Favori de Shampoo.
Yeah, Favori de Shampoo.
I thought you were talking about the Masters.
Yeah.
Shambo.
Yeah.
Shambo. I thought we were to change
and obviously final orders.
And also final orders.
Yeah.
I think Grange Clare West has to get a mention, and I think Johnny Who.
Okay, Harry, are you gonna nail your colours?
No, without a doubt. If the weather stays good,
final
orders at that price, both Glen and putting it up. So no, I'll definitely be having a bit of that price. The way they were talking, I was looking at the front of the market more or less.
Yeah.
So at that price, and if the ground's good, and Davey says he stays, I'll have a little bit of place as well.
Well, the 5 I've put up in my newspaper column, thank goodness Final Orders is in there after these 2 guys coming on about it. So Final Orders is in there at 5. I've also got number 1, Oscar's Brother. He's trading about 16-20 to 1, so delighted about that. 3-card Bragg, number 2. You can still get 50s and 40s, so there's some each way value there. I've got 1 from left field, Marble Sands, in there at number 3. It was 125 to 1, it's now 100. Still a bit of each way value, I thought, especially with the extended places. That's David Killahenna and also the chap who's the lawyer, Graham McPherson, joint trainers of that one. And also the one I've put in, just in case the Skeltons go and win it again, Panic Attack in there at number 4. So Oscar's Brother, 3-card Bragg, Marble Sands, Panic Attack and Final Orders. It's going to be some Grand National on Saturday, but of course it's a 3-day meeting and lots of good racing surrounding the Grand National on Saturday. There's that Aintree hurdle as well, and some cracking good racing on the Friday too. Is there anything, Davey, that's caught your eye on the Saturday away from the big race? Is there anything in particular? It's
actually a great card, and no, I just didn't. Well, not seeing declarations, you're just not sure, because I don't think there's many of the Irish horses are going to travel with Willie and Gordon fighting out the Trainers' Championship. So not just yet until I see final decks.
I'll mention one though. Home by the Lee goes for the Liverpool hurdle over 3 miles, and he's a good old horse, isn't he?
Oh, he's a fantastic horse. Yeah.
You know all about him.
Yeah. He's a great horse, and do you know what? I actually fancied him in Gorn the day he won, and there was something in the back of my mind saying that there was going to be an upset in Cheltenham, and obviously he was the upset.
Yeah. And catch your eye on the Friday, Davey, again, another Joseph horse I thought was interesting, Solness, going for the Melling Chase over 2.5 mile, or Soul Ness.
Yeah, been kept fresh. Been kept fresh.
Yeah,
Has
kept
stayed
fresh
away
for
from
this,
Cheltenham,
yeah. And a big price as well.
He's got a good record around Leopardstown, and Leopardstown is flat and left-handed, the same as Aintree. So maybe it wouldn't be a bad call.
Yeah, so some interesting racing Friday and Saturday, but of course it's all about the big one on Saturday. We've talked our way all the way through this year's Randox Health Grand National in the company of Davy Russell, twice winner of the race on Tiger Roll. Of course, we're absolutely delighted that Davy was with us here in the studio. But flat racing goes on, and flat racing, Harry, in America, and you've got one lined up for Friday night. Come on, out with it.
No, I don't often have it. You know me. I'm a listener on the horses, but notable speech. I missed the 13:08 and took 11:08 to win the Makers Mile race.
Yeah,
in Keeneland, 10:16 Friday night. As a punter, I love going to bed on a Friday night with a winner. It's so nice. There's a rugby league game Friday night, bet the winner, and so that's Friday night. I rarely put up horses myself, but out of the corner of my eye, I saw this horse get beat in Deauville last year.
Yeah,
got beat ahead, and I've never seen a horse go faster over the last furlong. And I put my nails. I said, next time that horse runs, I'm lumping on, and it won twice. And this is the first race back. He's flying at home. We get a good line there with my old friend Anthony Fortescue Thomas, and now the horse is flying. So I've had a big bet Saturday night. You were saying outside it's a bit of a dog track, Keeneland.
Yeah, it's tight.
Same as Woodbine. He's got looks like a front runner in the race. Yeah. Good draw, Davey says.
Yeah, so his pacemaker is drawn beside him as well, which is very important.
Perfect. Yeah. So get a pitch, get the money Friday night, and I've backed him for the Lockings as well. One of my favourite races.
You're well ahead of us.
Yeah, 6-1 and 5-1, but there won't be no 5-1 left after he shits in on Friday night. So I'll bet him to win. I'll bet him to win both. Brilliant. And really looking forward to Friday night.
Fantastic.
I love backing the winner in America.
If you ever get a chance to go to Keeneland, the racing there is unbelievable. When you land in Keeneland, it's horses.
Yeah,
There is nothing.
Yeah.
We actually went to the Red Mile where the trotters.
Oh, I love that even more.
Unreal. There was a race there worth 500 grand.
Oof.
Yeah, so but the money from the casino.
But trotting.
Yeah. The money from the casino has to be spent on the racing. It's unbelievable. It's a marvelous place. Keeneland itself is, and Lexington in around that area. Irish lads, English lads. It's fantastic. It's actually, and the race meeting is. There's a buzz there at the race. It's fantastic. Yeah.
I used to have to ride out on an old trotter. You try doing a rising trot on a trotter. It's
not
nightmare.
Easy. I have
absolute nightmare.
One of the kids has a pony at home that's got a breed of a trotter in it, and it's as awkward as anything. It's not easy. Yeah.
Crazy,
yeah.
Listen, we're off. We've exhausted this week's edition of the Betting Oracle. We're so happy to have you with us here on YouTube. Do join us again next week. My thanks once again to Harry Finlay and, of course, to our special guest this week on the Grand National Weekend, Davy Russell. Just remember, everybody watching, it's great to go to bed on a Friday night with a winner. Bye-bye.